So let me make one thing clear. I believe Season 1 of Goblin Slayer is better than Season 2 of Goblin Slayer. But with all that said, I still think Season 2 has been an enjoyable watch and one that I'm glad came out, and I hope we'll get a Season 3 as well. But I've seen a lot of disrespect and just straight up lies about Season 2 that I feel like at this point we need to address officially, because as someone who watched Season 1 of Goblin Slayer for the first time over a few days prior to the first episode of Season 2 dropping, Season 1 is still fresh in my mind. I experienced all those episodes fairly recently. This isn't years for me misremembering details like clearly some people are. And honestly, it makes me a little spicy because every week when I have people come up and try to tell me that, oh, Season 2 is now a slice of life. Where did Goblin Slayer go wrong? Why are they talking? Why aren't we slaying goblins enough? And I'm like, listen, bro, there are some differences in the case of, yes, there is less goblin slaying, but it's not like there's less action. We're still getting the same amount of combat and missions, it's just now we do have weddings that then transpire into something a little different. We have, ship battles and stuff. There still is goblin slaying, but at the end of the day, yes, the missions themselves are a little more varied. So yes, Season 1 also did have some variety here and there, but it was a lot more dominated by the goblins. But at the end of the day, Season 1 ended with Goblin Slayer being accepted by the guild and him being welcomed with open arms and feeling like a person for the first time in many years by a vast majority of people. Over the course of Season 1, the thing that made Season 1 worth watching wasn't, him swinging a sword around. While I do love the D&D style combat and the way it feels like we're rolling the dice and making our missions in the exact way we want, at the same time, the thing that was great was watching a party help Goblin Slayer open his heart up to the point of starting to heal from the trauma of his past. Season 2 is just carrying on with that. He's expressing a lot more emotion, he's feeling remorse for things, he feels guilty for things, but most importantly, he's starting to feel like a person rather than just simply Goblin Slayer. He's actually starting to feel like maybe he'll drop his name as something to be referred to rather than just that title. And while there is differences, the people who somehow think Season 2 is doing something vastly different than what Season 1 did are either misremembering or only watched Goblin Slayer fights. There's no other way that I'm seeing some of the comments I'm seeing, and this comes from someone who doesn't think Season 2 is better than Season 1. I think Season 1 was pretty damn amazing. I think Season 2 is pretty good to great depending on the week. This week, it's pretty good. That's probably my best way to sum it up in terms of episode 10. Some great moments, a lot of kind of pointless moments in terms of the bath stuff. But at the same time, there is still a lot I appreciate. So this isn't just me being like, I'm a fanboy for Season 2, I think it's the best thing ever. No, it's like, there's things I would change. I wish it was still on the old art production style in terms of the art direction and everything. I think there's some things that could be skimmed down on and focus in on more. But the stuff where like Goblin Slayer gets to hang out with people and actually express his feelings is stuff that they did in Season 1, just the difference was he didn't open up as much then, it was all the other characters doing it for him. But seriously, man, what the fuck are some people talking about? But anyway, with all that said, a full live reaction episode 10 of Season 2 over on my Patreon. If you would like to see my full uncut thoughts on the episode, it's over there if you're interested. We are going to talk about the episode. I just thought it was good to get that rant out of the way because I've been biting my tongue a fair amount this season, but it's just like, I don't understand. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with people saying it's a weaker season, but like the actual lie about this being different and now it's a slice of life and it's like, bro, it's always been a slice of life. It's like there's adventure to it, but half of the episodes of Season 1 are legitimately them getting to a mission or talking with characters. Like, that's no different, but I digress. So this week's episode, we get into the capital, and actually a lot happens. Our priestess gets robbed, like literally her clothes are stolen so this little girl can like run out of the kingdom, and Big Brother doesn't give an absolute shit, which from a ruler point of view, he logically makes sense, but morally is a scumbag. But we basically have everything going on here where she gets dragged off by the goblins, so you goblin fanatics are gonna very much enjoy next week, it seems, given that Goblin Slayer is gonna take up the mission. We get to kind of like explore a little bit while also feeling like there's a lot of things that feel like they're being established, not necessarily for 11 or 12 of the season, but more so Season 3, which I do think we are going to get. Whether or not it's going to be a quick turnaround, I have no idea. But either way, it feels like that roundtable meeting was very much establishing a lot of things that are going to happen sooner rather than later. Just unfortunately, we don't have the episodes to see them all come to fruition right now. But what we do have time for is Goblin Slayer barging in, having this woman just almost drop trow right there, being like, oh my god, my boyfriend's here to help save the day, as we actually go on a pretty interesting mission. But I do like seeing just them reach this capital, and while I do think like the fan servicey stuff is pretty pointless, I don't think the overall like relationship stuff with all the different characters towards Goblin Slayer is pointless. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's just eye candy. It's not needed, but it's pretty good eye candy, all things considered, minus the centaur. That horse should not be bathing in the same water as everyone else. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be a demi-human hater here, but that was a little much for me personally. But it was flirtatious, it was spicy, and whether or not you love it or hate it, it's there, it's whatever. But what was nice is they actually did use that scene for a narrative purpose, which is kind of where I land on these types of things, where it's like either make it funny or find a way to make it narratively or character-wise like work, like they're having a conversation that they normally wouldn't. So in this case, because their clothes are left in like little baskets, this woman I think was just waiting for someone who was like similar in like her body physique, because they do look a lot alike. So once she walks in, what's your stuff? Where did you do this, that, and the third? And obviously she steals it and runs away. I do like the idea that there's like these sentimental moments where, like, for our priestess, the thing that she's worried about is the chainmail, because that was the first thing Goblin Slayer complimented her on. It's just normal chainmail. She could easily replace it, but as we see with the gold loops, you know, where it does start to break down, she repairs it because it's an emotional thing for her. So that's really what she's worried about, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. And Goblin Slayer is trying to learn how to talk about feelings and stuff as people are crying, and he's getting little pep talks. But I think in general, like, an episode like this, to me, it's like a lot of the ideas that they went for, I think, are quite interesting, and it gets me excited for future moments. But the episode as a whole wasn't anything like too explosive or spicy or, you know, adrenaline pumping. It was a good kind of setup style episode with a couple of bumps along the way. I have gotten pretty much used to the new production style at this point, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie to myself or when I make these videos. I would prefer it to look like season 1. I've seen some people say they actually prefer season 2's look, and that's awesome. I mean, that's no issues with having those thoughts. But it's just, it is weird though when I see, because I think about the moments like when they were, you know, one of the moments I bring up a lot in these videos, because I think it's one of the coolest, is when they were in like that tunnel type area and there's like that giant eyeball and he used the flower to do the big explosion. You know, that didn't just randomly happen. What ended up happening was they were in a market area, they were talking a lot, they were just walking around and developing characters and getting the supplies before that moment. So an episode like this is literally no different than an episode like that from season 1. So it's just weird when people act like this is a vastly different season. It does look different, and Goblin Slayer is a lot more human, and there is more fan servicey moments. But out of those 3, the only one that I think would be okay to pick apart is the fan servicey stuff. But even then, it's like, who cares? It's there. We see some boobs and ass. It's not like the show's built around that. Get over it. That's me being spicy this week with Goblin Slayer. Shoot me. I don't give a fuck anymore. It's baffling to me that people can get so far into a show and miss a lot of what made it great to begin with. That's why when I made my season 1 video, I talked about how great the characterization of Goblin Slayer was and how good the combat was in terms of being tactical, and I really don't see much different. I prefer stuff from season 1, but season 2 has still been a very good ride and has me excited for a potential season 3. But anyway, let me know what you thought, whether of season 2 and what I've been talking about, or this latest episode and where you hope it goes after that pretty fun cliffhanger, because Goblin Slayer is saying it's Goblin Slayer time, and he's kind of having a midlife crisis of thinking of like, oh, can I even be Goblin Slayer anymore? Is that okay? And our dwarf is pretty much hooking him up, saying, listen bro, the best swords are when we don't know all the details, and that's exactly what his life's becoming. Still killing those goblins, but not simply just being all about that, and that is what I like to see with him. So, thoughts yourself, leave a like, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell of course, and like I mentioned, full live reaction to today's episode over on my Patreon, and while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. Alright, today we got Natasha Henry, Eggster TR, Sev Barton, Futurist177, Sotomore, Juan Carlos, and Duke Nugent. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.